listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower on WRES 100.7 FM in Asheville. Listen up and get tapped into local important resources, information, and topics. Learn more about the topics of today's show at buncombecounty.org. Okay, it's time to get tapped in. Well, hello. And if you hear my voice, you know it's time to get tapped in. I'm ZaKiya Bell Rogers.
And I'm Leonard Jones.
And Leonard and I come to you from Buncombe County Communications and Public Engagement, where the real heroes wear capes. Leonard, who do we have with us today?
Well, today we have Katherine Calhoun Cutshall, Buncombe County Special Collection Manager. And she is here to share with us that the Friends of Buncombe County Special Collections are proud to announce they are launching a new crowdsourcing campaign aimed at building a comprehensive digital archive to document the impact of Tropical Storm Helene in Western North Carolina through a newly launched platform called Come Hail or High Water. The public is invited to share personal stories, photos, videos, audio recordings, and other digital materials related to the storm. So welcome, Katherine. But I think we have a public service announcement before we get into the show.
Right before we get in there, we're going to let you all hear from Katherine, who is absolutely amazing. Buncombe County is hosting a series of recovery resources events that will help provide personalized support for Helene survivors. You can ask questions, apply for assistance, learn about recovery programs, and meet with representatives from a variety of agencies to get the help you need. These drop-in sessions will include partners like FEMA, the American Red Cross, North Carolina Disaster Case Managers, Medicaid, FCC Environmental, Via Health, the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, private property debris removal, and many others, as well as a representative from a number of county departments and programs. The series starts next Thursday, February 13th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Barnersville Fire Station. You can also join 5 to 7 on Thursday, February 20th, at Owen High School Cafeteria. And on Tuesday, February 25th, at Reynolds High School Cafeteria. And then again on Thursday, February the 27th at Leicester Community Center. Go to www.buncombeready.org to find more information. Katherine!
ZaKiya! Leonard!
We have missed you.
I missed you too. We've not been able to really talk since before the storm.
Yes.
So I'm excited to be with y'all.
And it's so exciting. If you do not know Katherine Cutshall, she is a native of Asheville, Buncombe County, and she has an amazing connection to the community. She has always worked in correcting the histories in our community and by making them true stories of our community. So we're so thankful and excited to have you back. And Come Hail or High Water is basically our community documenting our survival through Helene. Tell us more.
Right. So, one of the things that we like to do at Buncombe County Special Collections is, it's part of our mission is to collect the history of our region. And so I like to tell people, as you know, history is happening every single day. We've got an exhibit up in our reading room in our library. It's called An Incomplete History of Buncombe County because it just keeps building on itself. And so we were really excited to, after we started to get back into the office after the storm, we had members of our community coming to us and saying, well, how are you all going to document the storm and its effects? How are you going to capture this moment? And so we have this privilege as 21st century archivists to be able to gather a ton of information about the storm and its impact in our community. There have been other major weather events. The most, sort of famous one is the Great Flood of 1916. Well, over 100 years ago, nobody had a camera in their pocket, right?
No.
And we all have a very nice digital camera in our pocket. We can document things as they happen. We talk to each other on social media. We share these images and stories. But the thing is that, you know, some of this digital media, especially when it's shared on social media, could just sort of disappear at any time. So we have all of this information, all of these photos and stories that the folks who went through the 1916 flood didn't have the opportunity to share. Right? Folks who had cameras were professional photographers, and a lot of the images that we have from that time period are, you know, specifically of what we now call the River Arts District, or specifically of Biltmore Village. But we know that our entire community, all of Western North Carolina, was deeply impacted by this. And so all of us, as we experienced it, took photographs. We shared videos. We had the experience of trying to get in touch with our loved ones. And we just don't have that for these previous floods. We don't have a picture of what that looked like from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
So our goal, you know, after we heard people saying, you know, how can we donate? How can we give you our pictures, our videos? We came together and sort of thought through exactly how we might do this. And so that's how the Come Hell or High Water project was born. So like Leonard said, it's a crowdsourcing campaign at its heart. That's the biggest part of this project. And we're using a platform called Omeka, O-M-E-K-A, omeka.net, which is a website that allows folks to contribute these items directly from their own computer at home. So when you go onto the Come Hell or High Water website, there's a little tab to contribute, and you just choose from the drop down. Is it an image? Is it a personal story? Is it a video? Is it an audio recording? And you just fill out the form. You say, you know, what the title of the image is, your description of the image, which in most of these cases has been, you know, way beyond something real basic, like standing on the Riverlink Bridge looking south, you know, and that's fine too, but it's been really interesting to see people share, you know, what their thoughts were in that moment. Something else that's really interesting about the Omeka site is that we can put geotags on things. So when you fill out your information, the metadata is our archival word. When you fill out your metadata, you have the opportunity to put on the map a little pinpoint so that we can see where all of these photographs, videos, what have you, what piece of the community, what part of the community they represent. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, fleshing that out. So far we have over 100 submissions, which is, I mean, it's only been launched since the 22nd, so just a couple of weeks, and
wow,
the submissions are really pouring in, and we have a lot of community volunteers that are interested in helping. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of the project there, and I could go on and on and on about it, but we got a whole 30 minutes to go on about it.
Katherine, so it seems like a way. You said it's a website you can go to. So you mentioned a computer. You can do that on your phone as well, correct?
You can do it on your phone. It's easier on the computer, but you can do it on your phone for sure.
All right, because I was just wondering, because just sitting there thinking about, you know, dropping all that data, because we got tons of pictures.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So will there be a process that y'all go through and kind of pick some of the highlights, or would they just be a huge just dump of photos?
Yeah, so what happens when you submit your image or story, what have you, it comes into us on the back end. So it doesn't automatically post to the website, so we do have a level of moderation there. So far, we haven't really rejected any submissions.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that we as archivists do, and I've talked about this on the show before, is we weed collections, just like you weed your garden. So far, we really haven't done much of that here. You know, if long term we end up with like 6 pictures of the same view, and one of them comes in and it's got that real basic description, we might send a letter to somebody and say, thank you so much for your submission, but we already have, you know, X number of images of this spot. We would appreciate anything else that you might want to offer to the project. So we haven't had to do that yet, but, you know, like I said, once it comes in, we do some, you know, real basic kind of management there, spell checking, you know, doing little things to normalize things on the background. So you add tags when you upload an image. And so, you know, if you accidentally misspelled Helene, we got a couple of Helens recently, we just tapped that little E on, or you didn't use a capital letter or something, just so that it all comes out kind of fresh and clean on the front end. But
So I had another follow-up question around that. So in your pictures, are you looking more for like landscape pictures, or are you looking for with people actually in the pictures?
I think everything, everything. One of the things I've been talking about with folks as I share about the project is that we don't want to limit the focus to devastation and destruction, right? One of the kind of, if we want to call it that, silver linings of this disaster was watching how people in our community came together and helped each other, and that you can have joy and sadness all at the same time, and sometimes they facilitate one another, and so
and I think Helene really showed us that you can have both of those
for sure. So there are images that folks have posted of volunteers enjoying their time, sharing their resources with folks. I'm a little bit biased about this particular image, but one of the images that I shared from my own experience was a picture of a little gecko that I found on my walk on the 28th. So on September 28th, the day after the storm, I went on this big walk. I just wanted to kind of survey and see what things were looking like, and I accidentally walked 15 miles on that day. I mean, I just wore myself out without realizing it, because I was absorbing everything, just trying to process. But as I was on my walk, I was over near the Wedge Studios, and I sat down to rest, and I had a good little cry. And while I was having my cry, I heard this rustling in the leaves beneath my feet, and I looked down, it was this little gecko. And I stuck my hand up, and he just crawled right up in my hand. And I said, you know what, you're my friend. And so that gecko came around with me as my friend on the walk until he acted like he wanted to be put back down. And so that kind of thing, we're really interested in knowing what your experience as an individual, as a community was like. I anticipate that we'll get some pictures of, I know a lot of neighborhoods sort of set up little base camps with each other. So I anticipate we'll get some images of folks grilling out and enjoying each other's company. So it's not all about, landscape photographs, which are really wonderful. We've got a bunch of before and after shots, for instance, but it's all about having a peek into what we were all going through.
It'd be great, especially for the listeners out there, if anyone attended the candlelight vigil that they had downtown. They had a lot of things where people had taken branches of the trees and stuff that was displayed around the stage, as well as around that plaza, just to represent the foliage and stuff, because we had plenty of trees fall. So it was just one of those things. So if you listen out there, as she mentioned, go look through your phone and see some of those classics, because everybody was sharing pictures. Everybody was sharing pictures, and this is a time where you can actually put it in a depository for generations to come to realize the as we said, the come hell or high water. It's so funny, we keep stumbling over that, and it's such a common saying.
Come hell or high water.
Are we truly Southern? So come to hell or high water. It sounds like a great thing. So those listeners out there, please look through your phone, some of those classic image as well. I'm a native of the area, and it's one of those things you think of the River Arch District, and my wife as well is a native of the area, and it's, you think of the River Arch District and we think of it becoming this kind of art hub. But for us that grew up here in the 80s when it was the livestock, it's one of the things that's kind of remind you when it was a livestock. And hardly nobody was down there on the river. So it's just one of those things to just take those pictures, and I encourage people to just look through their phones and those pictures to upload into this project.
I think what is so important is that a group of us was talking, and I said that, pictures capture the beauty of the tragedy. And people are, everybody looked at me like, the beauty of the tragedy? And the beauty of the tragedy is that you see so much life. Like you're talking about a gecko. And I wouldn't have thought anything survived in that area. In that River Arch District area. They said the water was flowing through there for 5 hours at the speed of the Niagara Fall. And so you think about that, and you're like, you think about all the life lost. But in that tragedy, this beautiful life, and you know, it's a gecko. This beautiful life came out to let you know that it is going to be okay. And those are the things that plant the seeds of hope in so many. And that's one thing that our community has learned is that, you know, sometimes things change overnight drastically, and it may take you a long time to put everything back together. But it's the survival, about the story of our survival and the stories of us coming together. You know, and we lost a lot of people during that time. And we also, we gained a lot of people because we had babies born during this time.
Right.
And so when we think about, you know, all the beauty that came out of this, I mean, it's so great that Buncombe County, and especially what you had said that we need to capture this beauty. Because I think so many people, they just see the devastation.
Right.
They don't see the love in the community and the beauty that comes out.
And you know, like speaking of that beauty is you know, we talked about the pictures and the videos, but we're also open to these personal accounts and creative responses. And there have been submitted a couple of pieces of poetry that have absolutely floored me. They're so beautiful, and folks just kind of processing what happened to them. There's also been a submission from a community member who lived in Craigtown, who told, you know, he was so vulnerable in sharing his story of you know, watching that destruction in his particular community. And of course we talk about the River Arts District right now on display in our Carolina Record Shop Artists in Residence space. We have some pieces from River Arts District artists that are using these reclaimed materials, pieces of debris, to make beautiful art and to, you know, process that in their own way. So, you know, it's open to all sorts of different submissions, all sorts of different ways of representing what we all went through.
Yeah, I like the idea around those oral histories because it really gives voice to just the images. And it also, you know, evokes those emotions that come along with that event, because as we done talked several times since the storm on this show, it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic to release. It's a part of the grieving process as well. But it's also one of those things as we travel around the county, the topography changed. Like when we think of this title, come hell or high water, the topography has shifted. Some riverbeds and riverbanks are wider than they used to.
Some creeks are now riverbeds.
Yeah, but they done went back into their small little creeks, but you just have these vast open spaces, which will be different. And we lost so many trees. You know, when you think of the mountains and the trees, just the impact of it, just the impact that I'm really embracing, because it's new views. Living here all my life, you know, you drive down certain streets or drive by the river, and it's like it's never been that open. I've never seen.
Now that the river road is open, like going past the golf course, that road is open now, and that looks completely different. It is like a foreign place. It's funny we talk about how therapeutic it is. I went and saw one of the elders in our community recently, and we were standing in her yard, and if you look to the right of her house, there's like 15 trees that are just stacked up, like, you know, not neatly, but they've been pulled out of their yards and everything. And I was talking to her, and I wish that I had a camera and like was recorded. I didn't know that this was going to be such an organic conversation. And she says to me, she said, and she's older, it's just her and her husband, and the trees were falling into her yard. And she said, the wind, and they don't live anywhere near water, they live in Shiloh. She said, the wind was so loud. And she said, and the trees were falling into our yards. And she said, and our house was shaking.
Wow.
Our house was shaking. And just to hear her say that, she said, I've never been through anything like that in my life. And to hear her say that, you know, I couldn't imagine, like, your house shaking and you feel it, you look out in the next morning and the majority of your trees in your yard have missed your house.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't touch anywhere near your house, but they're all over your yard. Didn't damage your cars, your carport, your sheds or anything, but they're all over your yard.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, the feeling that you get from that, what, you know, and how you comprehend that. And then you hear about other people who weren't so lucky. And but just listening to her talk about that, you could tell it was something that she needed to tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
that she hadn't said.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important about encouraging folks to talk about this, because a lot of times, you know, we've been in a survival mode for so long that we need to thrive emotionally now, because if not, you know, 5-10 months from now, we're going to have other issues. And so I encourage everyone to go and get in contact with your local library. And do you all still have the book bags?
We do, yeah. So Leonard brought up oral history. So like we already talked about the crowdsourcing piece, and that's kind of the heart of the project. But there are a couple other pieces as well. So we have a couple of volunteers who, you know, sort of got started on their own oral history projects, and they're very excited. One person is she is a River Arts District artist, and she's going to be interviewing those folks. Another is a library school student who interviewed some folks up in Yancey County. But a part of our process from the special collections standpoint, because with this being a community-led project, we're not here necessarily to lead or you know, plan out the project. You know, the idea is that we want to hear from the community. What do you want? What do you need? But a core piece of what we're going to try to do is to capture some of those stories in a way that's a little more methodical, right? To make sure that we ask folks who, you know, have very specific experiences to talk about that. And to encourage people to come in and, you know, check out the backpack themselves and record those. So we're not going to start that until end of March, because one of the things that's really important to us with this project is to encourage healing and not re-traumatize the community or ourselves. You know, going through these submissions, I initially was like, okay, cool, this is going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing sort of this metadata work. And then I realized I can only do about 2 or 3 of these at a time, because it sort of brings you back to that place. So we are, you know, really thinking about like, what is trauma-informed practice? What does it mean to collect the record of a disaster without being extractive, without pushing people, without re-traumatizing people? And so I'm really excited that one of the folks who has volunteered to help with the oral history piece of things, her name is Anne, and she is a Katrina survivor. Oh, wow. And she did this very similar kind of oral history project, you know, 20 years ago after that disaster. So, you know, it'll be really interesting to capture some of these stories and to have members of our community do that themselves. So, you know, going back to the idea of we're not here to, you know, dictate what the project looks like. We're here to act as a support system and facilitator for folks who, you know, want to gather and contribute those items and sort of morph and change and provide whatever kind of support that people are looking for.
Katherine, do you know if it's like, as this project or campaign continues on, do you know, like, just down the line, are there any kind of hopes of doing like maybe an exhibit around it, or as things go on? We know currently right now we're just crowdsourcing, pulling information, but is there any thoughts about as we move forward and submissions come in, how we play that out?
Yeah, so you know, as things roll in, we'll see, you know, what we get. In my mind, something like a before and after kind of style exhibit could be really interesting. Coming up in July 1916 is when the Great Flood of 1916 happened, and we're going to have a couple of different programs sort of centered around that. So we'll be showing a film that was made several years ago called Come Hell or High Water. It's a documentary about the 1916 flood. Wow. And to have a couple of folks, some colleagues from up at Appalachian State, who have done some research on a ballad called The Brushy Mountain Freshet, which is a ballad about the destruction of the flood of 1916. And so I'm wondering, how that might encourage some different things of members of our community. I know some folks have already produced music as a result of this, and music is another good way to heal and process our grief. So that's definitely coming up. But like I said, it's kind of, right now we're in that fluid stage of, letting people know that this project is going on, letting people know that they can volunteer their time to our Friends of Buncombe County Special Collections organization, which has, provided the funding and the resources that we need people-wise to be able to pull this off, because we couldn't do it by ourselves.
And Katherine, before we go, I know it's been a great conversation around this project. Just tell the listeners a little bit about Special Collection, where it's at, where it's located, your hours, and the great work that you and your team does.
Yeah, so the Buncombe County Special Collections Library is on the lower level of Pack Memorial Library. So when you walk in the door, you come downstairs, you keep on going past the children's department, and you dead end right into us. We're a well-kept secret down in the basement. But Special Collections is dedicated to actively, this is part of what we're doing right now, actively collecting, preserving, and promoting the history of Buncombe County in Western North Carolina. So you can visit our library to get help with, personal research projects. If you're interested in researching your family history, in researching, we've had several folks come and, read up about past historic weather events in our region. But you can also just visit our reading room to relax and exist in a comfortable library environment. Libraries are for everyone. You don't have to have a specific reason to come to Special Collections. I mentioned our Carolina Record Shop Artist in Residence space. We do have a pretty sizable, it's growing collection of vinyl records that, we don't shush. We invite you to come and listen to some of those records, to engage with the past, flip through a coffee table book and just enjoy the space. And then of course we have our historical archives, which live in secure storage, things that date all the way back to the mid 1600s.
Oh wow.
To the present. We talk about all of these items that we'll be collecting, or most of the items that we'll be collecting in this crowdsourcing campaign, are born digital. They've never existed in a physical format before. So everything from 400-year-old books to month-old digital photographs are available for folks to access and research, whether that's you're coming to write your dissertation, or you're just curious and you want to look at pictures of your neighborhood.
Nice.
Also, if you want to go look at is it a coyote or a fox?
The fox. ZaKiya loves that fox.
The fox. It is a taxidermed fox on the top of a shelf in the library. Go check that out. Look at that first, and then get a book, or see something else. But you gotta go see the fox.
The fox is kind of our little mascot. You see him when you first walk in the room. Yeah, he belonged to Wilma Dykeman, the author Wilma Dykeman, at some point, and it made his way to us a few years ago.
You may say, why would they keep such an important place in the basement? And I'm gonna tell you why after I let Katherine and Leonard give us their last moments. Katherine, what do you want our folks to leave with today?
So I'd like you to leave with the knowledge that we're excited to start this project. You can find the project a couple of different ways to contribute. You can visit buncombecounty.org/library, and across the top there's some tiles, and one of those tiles is for the Come Hell or High Water project. Or you can get there directly at helenehistory.omeka, that's omeka.net. And where you can read up more about the project, where you can contribute your own items, and then to keep an eye out for different things that Buncombe County Special Collections is up to. I'll also note that if you are really interested in getting involved as a volunteer with the project, we've had several very successful volunteer meetings so far, like 15-20 people who are just ready to go to help make this project happen. So if you'd like to volunteer, you can email friends bcsc@gmail.com, where somebody from our friends support group will get back in touch with you and help hook you up with the project and some specific volunteer roles. And tell your friends, tell your community. If you're at Sunday school or your book club or what have you, take a couple minutes and let folks know that we are really interested in collecting these memories.
And I'd just like to echo one of the values with Buncombe County is around equity. And one of our things around it is that we want to be equitable in reaching out to all the residents of Buncombe County, no matter what your race, creed, color, all that is. We want to let people know in history we all were here. We want to know all the various people that contributed and was impacted by this storm. And this is a great way, as Katherine has said today, HeleneHistory.omeka, OMEKA.net is the portal that anyone who wishes to contribute, whether it's a personal story, photograph, a video, audio file, all submissions will be considered. So when you look back in history and you wonder, hey, where the black people, where the brown people, where the other nationalities, we were all here in 2024 when the storm hit. So let your story be known and let future generations know who all was here and contributed and helped. So go out, support this project, look through your phone and upload your story, tell your story, so future generations will know.
Yes. So we are one Buncombe, and I love how we have been working together and really making sure that each other are taken care of. And again, as I said before, you may wonder, why is this wonderful place at the bottom in the basement of the library? Well, many times we say, I love you from the bottom of my heart, from the depths of my soul, things of that nature. It's always at the bottom. And so therefore, there are always special things in the bottom of places. You go to a house and you say, what's in the basement? And you always find a treasure. And right here in our own library is an awesome treasure that I encourage all of you to explore. I also encourage all of you all to explore the bottoms of your hearts, the bottom of your memories, and understand that it is okay to share them when you're ready. And there's a place where you can share them. That this can also be therapeutic, and make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And sometimes it is okay just to listen to other folks until you're ready. And with that being said, we want you to know that you are absolutely amazing, absolutely wonderful, and that we are so proud of our community. We are one Buncombe, and you've been tapped in.
Thank you for listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower, here on WRES 100.7 FM in Nashville. Learn more about today's topic at buncombecounty.org. Otherwise, stay tuned for more great episodes coming up.